Hello, my name is Judy Spear, and I work with Small Waters Education, which is a local nonprofit organization. And our mission is to promote mutually beneficial relationships between humans and the rest of the natural world. And one of the ways we do this is by teaching permaculture. Permaculture is a design system for designing our landscapes that we live in a sustainable manner, in a way that benefits all living things as much as possible. And we do this, permaculture uses nature's patterns to build upon and to adapt in order to make our landscapes where we live more productive, more energy efficient, and more beneficial for us. So I'm here in front of our front yard garden as a way of illustrating how we used permaculture principles here at our home, my husband Jack and I, to design and build this garden. And I'll tell you more about how we did that. But as you can see right now, it's got a lot of native plants here. It's got a lot of seed heads. Some of the plants, the seed has already been collected. It's been snipped off. We've got some herbs. We've got food plants all scattered about here. So I want to use this spot to illustrate how permaculture is based on a set of ethics. And these ethics are ethics that myself and my husband Jack share. And so that's why we enjoy using the system of permaculture, because it just matches our life. It matches what we want to do with our life. So the ethics are earth care, people care, and fair share. And I'll go through each one of those. Earth care says that we as humans are responsible for taking care of the beings which we share this planet with, and to help ensure that all of the ecosystems can thrive and can evolve and can continue to provide all the services that they give, giving us clean air, clean water, a stable climate, all of those things we need to survive. So this garden can illustrate the earth care in that we have provided lots of native plants here, and native plants form the basis of our local ecosystem. They co-evolved with the insects, with the birds, with the amphibians. So this provides lots of food and habitat for beneficial pollinating insects, for caterpillars, for butterflies. We have butterfly weed over there. We've got plants that support different larval stages of moths and butterflies, for example. The seeds provide food for the birds and other animals. So that's earth care. And people care. In order to survive, people need food and medicine and clothing and shelter. And we can provide some of that for ourselves. So we have food plants here. We have perennial onions. We have herbs like lemon balm. This makes a really good tea, and it's very medicinal. We have rhubarb. We have horseradish. So these herbs here, the thyme, the creeping thyme, which is very good for seasoning as well as for tea. It's got medicinal purposes too. We use all of these and share them with others, and that's the fair share part. The third ethic is fair share, that we need to look at the way we use our resources and how much we consume. And how much do we really need to consume? And how much we might have left over. So therefore, we try to share the bounty of this garden with others. For example, I don't cut all the blooms from my basil plant because I see the pollinating bees. It's autumn, but there's still some out, and they need their pollen, and the wasps too. So I leave some flowers on for them. The seed heads of the showy goldenrod that I've already cut, those were shared with neighbors yesterday at our annual local seed sharing day. So this is where native plant enthusiasts, gardeners, and people who are restoring native ecosystems on their own land come together and share seed with each other. So those are examples of the ethics of permaculture. So as you can see, this beautiful old ancient bur oak, actually it's a Bebb's oak, it's a hybrid oak, is in our front yard, and we have been trying to restore the savanna vegetation around it. So our home is situated in what had been an oak savanna, and it had been disturbed, and many of the native vegetation has been overtaken by invasive species. So we're trying to bring back some of the natives and have a more functioning ecosystem. And then right next to it is where we decided to put our vegetable garden. So I want to show you this example of the ways of knowing that permaculture has developed that I believe are very powerful. It's a combination of not just relying on one way of knowing, but on three. It's science and technology, it's traditional wisdom, and it's direct observation, information that you collect on your own. So by using all three of these, we can come up with powerful solutions. Here's one solution. It's called a hugel bed, or hugel culture. And hugel is the German word for hill. And I have been told that this is a very traditional way of growing food crops in Europe. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it sure makes a lot of sense because it's a way of using up some old decaying wood that you might have around. Now, you could see here we have our wood pile. We heat our home with wood, and this is where we do a lot of splitting and chopping and stacking, and we'll come upon stumps that you can't split, odd-shaped things that are already decaying and have fungus on them. Can't use those, so we just toss them on the side here. After a while, these things piled up, and we thought, what can we do with them? All we had to do was move them over here, dig up a little bit of soil, put it on the side, pile up our wood, add some wood chips, leaves, compost, whatever we had laying around, put the soil back on top. And over time, the wood is decaying and providing sort of like a compost pile underneath this vegetable bed. And there's a lot of surface area that can be planted. So I thought, this is going to be a wonderfully lush vegetable garden. Well, I'll tell you, this is what our direct observation has showed us. This year we had a drought. And even though this garden area is fenced in, we were watering this. I'd planted some beans and some kale, various other things. And I guess the groundhogs were looking at it and thinking, this looks a whole lot better than the plants outside the fence. And so I discovered one day that they had tunneled underneath, and their entranceway is right here by the hugel bed. And they made their way and ate all of our beans and our kale. So this was an example of how gotta share the surplus, gotta share your bounty with the neighbors around you. Normally, these groundhogs would not be interested in our vegetable bed, however, because they have plenty of vegetation out there. They're happy usually hanging around in the oak savanna area because that's what they eat also. But I did manage, once the rains did come, to plant a few arugula seeds, and we'll get a few salads out of this before it gets too cold. So that's how we've been just using our direct observation, seeing how the cycles of the climate and the seasons give us either challenges or opportunities. Also, the traditional methods that generations before us have figured out in order to have an energy efficient way of growing food. And we are also studying more about soils and how the fungus and the bacteria and the other microbes from a very lively interconnected soil food web is going to support the plants that we grow for food. And we are hopefully going to be able to study from this garden in years to come and collect more soil samples and see what the life in this hugel bed is going to offer us. Okay, now we're in our food forest, and I would like to share with you how permaculture offers a whole set of tools like hammers and screwdrivers and power tools, different tools that you would use for different jobs around the house. Permaculture offers a whole list of principles that are based on nature cycles and that can help to design your landscape. So one of those principles are to use and value renewable resources rather than the non-renewable ones. That's how nature works, is on cycles and on renewables. So right across the road here, we have a conventional cornfield. And that is based on non-renewable resources. It's very fossil fuel intensive. It's based on lots of chemical inputs. And the yield is only from like one dimension, right? It's one layer of plants. In this food forest, we have perennials, we have trees, we have shrubs, we have ground cover plants, we have roots that we can harvest from each of those layers. And because they're perennial, we don't till up the soil every year. We planted once these trees 10 years ago, and we don't have to replant them again. We keep adding to the ground layer vegetation, establishing plants that work together in communities. And we are experimenting with different native plants, mostly natives grow here, that are good for food and for medicine and for other uses. So for example, we planted butternut trees. And these are a relative of the black walnut. The nuts are delicious. And even though they're being threatened by a blight, we are using burning, prescription burning, as a way of attempting to keep these trees healthy. And so far, they're doing pretty well. Another principle I would like to share is using and valuing diversity. And diversity in nature is what makes ecosystems resilient, able to withstand disturbances, able to co-evolve with the local web of life. And so this food forest is based on natural communities of trees and shrubs and ground layer plants that would normally grow together in nature. And we chose the ones that would thrive in this location, which is some wetland soil, but also gives food. And so, for example, we grow not only a variety of food plants, but ones that become ripe and ready to harvest at diverse times of the year. And that way we can stagger our harvest throughout the growing season instead of being all overwhelmed at the same time. One of our favorite crops is aronia, another name for chokeberry. And it's a native shrub that produces these dark berries full of antioxidants and other healthful properties. And they're tart, and they have a little edge to them, but we love them, and we have a freezer full of them to last us the whole year, to put in our smoothies and our yogurt. And another crop that was very plentiful this year, we're very happy to have lots of hazelnuts. Another native shrub, native to the oak savanna, and once found in great abundance in this area of our region, but have been more scarce. So we planted a lot of native hazelnuts, and they're small, but they're very tasty and full of protein, and we'll be eating them all winter. Another crop that we harvest nearby from our oak trees are maitake mushrooms, and these are very medicinal as well as yummy. I dry them and preserve them throughout the year. And another harvest that I would want to share with you is sweetgrass. We find that this grows very well in our soil here, and it's food for the soul, not just for the body. Whenever I pass by the patch of sweetgrass on a sunny day, the smell of it just automatically relaxes and soothes and reminds me that the beings here are just here to be in community with us. And I take the grass and braid it in the traditional Potawatomi method, honoring the ancestors who took care of this land for generations and generations before they were forcibly removed, and reminding me of the heritage of this land. And I bring the braids inside and hang them on the wall where, when I pass by, the smell also reminds me of the land. So we're back in our front yard garden to show a few more permaculture principles and how we've used them to create a really successful front yard. One of the principles that we just love is called "the problem is the solution." When we first moved into this property, we had a problem with water. There's a slight slope going downhill into our wall. And on top of that, the drainage was terrible from the driveway because the previous owners had installed plastic sheeting underneath the gravel in the driveway, which meant that in a rainstorm, the water just rushed downhill into our wall and created lots of damage to the structure. We had to rebuild this wall, and then we needed to look at the landform and how we can manage the water in a more efficient and useful way. So the problem was water, but the solution was water as well, because we were able to grade the land a little better, take out all the weeds that were growing here before, and channel the water into this trench. We also took the water from the roof and put it through the drain pipes, the gutters in the drain pipe system, and channeled that into the trench as well. And into this trench, we've been planting native plants which have really deep roots. So the solution is to manage this water to help it infiltrate into the ground and recharge our aquifers and our well. And so this has helped tremendously. Of course, we took the plastic out of the driveway. That was number one. And every time we have a strong rainstorm, we run out and make sure that the water is being channeled into the proper place. Sometimes we have to clean out the trench. Sometimes we have to dig a new one, depending on how things evolve. But this has been a really efficient solution. And another principle I'd like to share is called stacking functions. See, in nature, everything doesn't do just one job. An oak tree can do a whole slew of things. It can provide habitat, it can provide food, it provides a community for, it provides soil organisms to support a community of plants that grow underneath it. It provides shade, it soaks up the photons from the sun, it does a zillion things. So in this garden we wanted it to do a number of things as well. So the functions that this garden provides is not only water management, but it's also the growing of some food, as I showed you before, the onions, the herbs, some salad greens that we grow here, some rhubarb. We also have habitat here for native insects. We find toads and snakes coming through here. We see the goldfinches eating the seeds from our native plants. So we provide habitat. And what else do we provide? We provide efficiency because these food and herb plants are really close to our front door. As you can see, the door is over there, and that's my kitchen. I just walk out and collect the herbs I need for the soup, and it's very efficient. And what's the fourth one? Oh yeah, when this yard was full of weeds, people had a hard time finding our front door. Guests would come and would end up walking all around the house. So this provides also a very beautiful way of leading people to the front door. So there you have at least 4 functions for this garden. So I hope that this talk has excited you about the possibilities of using permaculture on your own land, in your own front yard, in your own backyard, on your balcony, whatever it is you've got to work with. And I have a handout available with many resources for you to explore more, and contact information for our Lake McHenry Permaculture Facebook group, as well as other resources that we hope you'll take advantage of. Thank you.